Sit back, relax, and let your mind drift into a time before time, when the world was raw, untamed, and silent except for the whisper of wind over endless plains and the distant crack of thunder. Imagine a small figure, hunched over a flickering fire, eyes wide in the half-light, sensing a world far larger and stranger than itself. These were the first humans, not yet masters of the earth, but curious wanderers, feeling the pulse of life and the vastness of the unknown. The air smells of damp earth and smoke. The stars glimmer overhead in a dark sky untouched by city lights, and somewhere in the distance a predator prowls, reminding them that survival is never guaranteed. Some researchers believe this is when consciousness first flickered, the moment our ancestors realized they were separate from the shadows around them, that the world could be observed, questioned, and shaped. Others suggest it was the first spark of imagination, when a flicker of thought became a story told beside the fire, a warning, a song, a dream of something beyond mere survival. They carved the first marks into stone, not knowing that these scratches would one day become writing, the bridge between fleeting thought and lasting memory. Every flicker of firelight casts shadows that dance like silent teachers, showing them forms and possibilities they could not yet name. Fingers trace patterns in the dirt, the first attempt to make sense of a vast, chaotic world, and perhaps for the first time, a question arises. What is beyond what I see? What lies in the forests, the mountains, the endless horizon that beckons with both danger and promise? And somewhere deep inside, an instinct stirs not just to survive, but to understand, to create, to leave a mark. This is the first chapter of human civilization, long before cities, empires, or machines, when thought itself was a tool as vital as any stone axe. The mysteries of existence hung like heavy clouds over their heads, and yet the flicker of firelight offered a fragile promise, knowledge, discovery, and a path forward. As their minds reached outward, touching stars they could not yet name, the story of humanity quietly began. And as we look back, we are left with the same question that haunted them. What is our place in a world so vast, so ancient, and so full of secrets? The first spark has been lit, but the journey is only beginning as dawn breaks over the rolling plains. The world is still and raw, painted in shades of mist and shadow, and humanity takes its first tentative steps toward mastery. Early humans discovered the fire's warmth, the way its glow cut through darkness, the way its crackle and hiss could chase away predators or comfort the frightened. Fire was more than light, it was power, a fragile sun that could be carried in the hand, a symbol of control over nature itself. Alongside this, the first tools emerge, crude yet revolutionary. Stones chipped to sharp edges, sticks hardened in fire, bones carved into points and hooks. Some researchers believe that these tools were more than instruments. They were extensions of the mind, a physical manifestation of imagination and planning. Others suggest they were born from necessity, the raw struggle to survive shaping innovation almost unconsciously. Listen closely, and you can almost hear the rhythm of creation, the tap of stone on stone, the scraping of a bone against wood, the sigh of wind through the grasslands. Each action, each invention folds into the next, building the framework for something far greater than immediate survival. Tools become weapons, weapons become means to hunt, to gather, to defend, to conquer the challenges of a world both beautiful and merciless. And with fire comes another revelation, cooking. Meat softens, flavors awaken, nutrients amplify, and the human body begins to change, evolving in ways that will ripple through millennia. The social circle around the fire grows tighter. Communication deepens. Some researchers argue that this is when language, storytelling, and culture began to take root. A shared understanding that connected minds across space and time. Others suggest it was instinctual, a method of survival that slowly became art, myth, and lore. Shadows dance on cave walls, the first galleries of human imagination, hinting at creatures unseen, spirits feared, and possibilities dreamed. Every spark from the flame ignites not just the physical world, but the world of thought, of curiosity, of daring to reach beyond the immediate, the visible, the known. And yet, for all this progress, the horizon remains wild, untamed, and unknowable. The first civilizations are still centuries away, but the foundation is being laid one fire, one tool, one idea at a time. And in that faint glow, the earliest humans may have felt it, the whisper of something extraordinary. A promise that the story of humanity was just beginning, and that the world itself was waiting to be understood. Picture a vast, open landscape, windswept and quiet, where herds roam and rivers carve paths through the earth, and humans, once wanderers, begin to pause. For tens of thousands of years, life had been dictated by the seasons, by prey and predator, by survival alone. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, the seeds of a revolution take root literally. The first humans discover that the earth can be tamed, that grains can be sown and nurtured, that plants can be coaxed into yielding more than nature had intended. Wheat, barley, lentils, and millet become more than sustenance. They become the foundation of permanence. Some researchers believe this was a conscious choice, a calculated gamble to trade freedom for stability, while others suggest it was an accidental observation. A handful of seeds dropped near a riverbank and forgotten, only to sprout into abundance. Communities form around fertile valleys: Mesopotamia, the Nile Delta, the Indus Basin, the Yellow River Reach, a cradle of civilization yet unseen. Each a silent witness to the first tentative experiments in farming. Animals are tamed, herds domesticated, and the bond between human and nature shifts irrevocably. Cows, sheep, goats, and pigs become partners in survival, and humans, in turn, become architects of ecosystems. Life slows in one sense, yet becomes more complex in another. Homes, once temporary shelters, solidify into structures of mud and stone. Storage pits and granaries emerge, safeguarding the bounty of harvests, while new social structures develop, hierarchies that assign labor, responsibility, and authority. From one generation to the next, knowledge accumulates, passed not just through survival but through teaching, observation, and ritual. The skies are watched for rains, the soil tested by hand, the cycles of the moon and sun mapped in careful record. Some researchers see this as the dawn of organized religion, an attempt to influence unseen forces that govern growth, death, and renewal. Others suggest that myths and gods were born from observation, a way to explain what could not yet be understood. And still, for all this innovation, danger and uncertainty remain. Floods, droughts, disease, and the threat of marauding tribes loom ever present. Yet, the human urge to settle, to cultivate, to shape the world is irresistible. With agriculture, humanity steps onto a new path, a path that will lead to cities, to kingdoms, to empires. And in the quiet rustle of wheat in the wind, in the lowing of tethered cattle, one can almost hear it, the faint, persistent heartbeat of civilization slowly awakening, promising stories that will span millennia and leave a mark upon the earth unlike any before. Imagine the first cities rising like islands in a sea of fields, walls of sun-baked mud stretching skyward, narrow streets winding between clusters of homes, markets alive with the murmur of haggling and the scent of spices and smoke. Civilization had stepped fully into existence, and humanity was learning the delicate dance of order and chaos. In Mesopotamia, between the Tigris and Euphrates, the first great city-states emerge, Uruk and Babylon. Here, monumental ziggurats pierce the sky, their steps rising in precise symmetry, reaching toward gods who may or may not be listening. Scribes record transactions on clay tablets, symbols etched with reed styluses, preserving knowledge for generations. Some researchers suggest these early forms of writing were born purely of practicality, keeping track of grain, livestock, and trade, while others believe that humans were compelled to communicate with the divine, to anchor their fleeting lives in permanence. From one city to the next, patterns repeat. Roads connect settlements, rivers ferry goods, and trade becomes the lifeblood of society. Bronze tools and weapons give an edge in agriculture and war, and metalworking becomes a secret craft, one closely guarded yet spreading like wildfire across continents. Within city walls, hierarchies solidify. Priests hold sway over the unseen. Kings and nobles wield authority through wealth and armies. Artisans and laborers sustain the economy, while the poor dwell in dense quarters, their lives dictated by toil. Religion, law, and commerce intertwine, shaping culture, ethics, and ambition. Some scholars propose that urbanization created both freedom and confinement. More people meant more ideas, more art, more specialization, yet it also meant surveillance, control, and vulnerability. Epidemics, fires, and invasions remind citizens of mortality, pressing the eternal question: can humans outlast their own creations? In these cities, humans experiment with governance, codifying rules that dictate not only behavior but justice, morality, and consequence. The Code of Hammurabi, etched in stone, stands as an early attempt to wield fairness and fear simultaneously, a testament to the balance civilizations must strike between order and oppression. As markets hum with commerce, temples echo with ritual chants, and city walls shiver under the march of armies, one thing becomes clear: humanity has moved from survival to influence. From scattered settlements to urban hubs, from simple huts to stone towers, humans are shaping not just their environment, but the very idea of civilization itself. And yet, as cities grow, so too do their shadows. Wars loom, power corrupts, and history whispers warnings through the dust of forgotten streets. The question lingers: how will these human experiments in society endure, and at what cost? Sit back, relax, and imagine a world where vast empires stretch as far as the eye can see, where rivers like the Nile and the Indus become arteries of life, feeding cities, armies, and ambition. The first kingdoms rise, and with them power takes a new form, centralized, absolute, and often ruthless. In Egypt, the pharaohs command not only armies but the allegiance of gods themselves. Their tombs carved into the living rock, pyramids rising like colossal stairways to eternity. Some researchers suggest these monuments were built to secure divine favor, while others argue they were displays of human ingenuity and sheer will, a message to all who would come after. Across the Fertile Crescent, the Assyrians carve a different path: iron weapons, organized armies, and strategic ruthlessness that turns cities to dust and spreads fear as effectively as their influence. From Mesopotamia to the Indus Valley, rulers codify law, organize irrigation, and patronize the arts, while common people labor, pray, and dream under the watchful eyes of kings and priests. Meanwhile, in the East, dynasties in China begin their long arc. The Shang and Zhou, leaving behind oracle bones, bronze ritual vessels, and a philosophy of order, hierarchy, and cosmic balance that will echo for millennia. Trade networks expand, linking cultures across deserts, mountains, and seas. Ideas, technologies, and luxuries cross borders, creating a web of human connection unlike anything before. But empires are fragile as they are grand. Internal strife, succession crises, and external invasions test the durability of these civilizations. Some fall suddenly, swallowed by rivals or the very chaos they sought to control, while others evolve, absorbing cultures, languages, and religions along the way. The mysteries of lost cities like Mohenjo, with its streets perfectly aligned and advanced sanitation, now silent beneath the sand, remind us that even the greatest civilizations can vanish, leaving behind only whispers and ruins. As empires rise and fall, humans experiment with governance, religion, and war on a scale previously unimaginable, learning that ambition can both build wonders and unleash devastation. In this era, humans are no longer merely surviving, they are shaping the world, experimenting with power, culture, and permanence. And yet, even as kings decree and armies march, a question hovers over every empire. Will their legacy endure? Or will time, nature, and human folly erase them completely, leaving only shadows of greatness behind? Close your eyes and picture a world where belief shapes every corner of life, where temples, churches, and mosques rise like beacons of devotion, and faith becomes both sanctuary and weapon. The Middle Ages emerge, a period of contrasts, where loyalty is as vital as survival, and empires are bound by oaths as much as by borders. Feudalism structures society, with kings granting land to nobles, nobles commanding knights, and peasants tilling fields under the watchful eyes of those above, their lives dictated by duty, fear, and hope. Christianity spreads through Europe like wildfire, its teachings weaving into law, morality, and governance, while in the East, Islam rises with equal fervor, transforming deserts into centers of learning, trade, and culture. The Islamic Golden Age illuminates the world with knowledge. From the libraries of Baghdad to the architectural marvels of Cordoba, while mathematicians, astronomers, and physicians push the boundaries of human understanding. Yet this age is not only one of creation, it is also one of conflict. The Crusades erupt, waves of fervent belief clashing across lands sacred to many. Jerusalem becomes a prize, a symbol, a battleground. Tales of courage, betrayal, and bloodshed echo through the centuries, leaving scars on civilizations and the transfer of knowledge as one of their paradoxical legacies. Meanwhile, ordinary life is harsh. The Black Death sweeps through Europe, invisible, unstoppable, claiming millions in its relentless path. Entire villages vanish, economies collapse, and feudal structures strain under the weight of lost labor. People turn inward, faith intensifies, and yet, questions stir quietly, questions about life, death, and the unseen forces that govern existence. It is a time of both creation and decay, of towering cathedrals and crumbling villages, of sacred texts and bloody conquest. Through it all, humans are learning, observing, surviving, and adapting. Their societies becoming ever more complex, their ambitions reaching toward knowledge, power, and understanding. And in the shadows of these empires, whispers linger of lost technologies, forgotten wisdom, and the thin line between devotion and destruction. The world is changing, slowly, inexorably, shaping the foundations of the modern civilizations to come. Yet, as faith guides and conflicts rage, one question persists, echoing through stone halls and empty streets. How will humanity reconcile the divine, the mortal, and the relentless march of time? Imagine walking through sunlit streets of Florence, the smell of oil paint and marble dust filling the air, as artists, philosophers, and inventors ignite a transformation that will echo through time. The Middle Ages begin to fade, giving way to the Renaissance, a period of curiosity, experimentation, and the revival of classical knowledge. Leonardo da Vinci sketches flying machines and anatomical studies, capturing the intricacies of the human body with unmatched precision, while Michelangelo chisels marble into David, a figure both divine and human, alive in every curve and vein. Scholars rediscover the wisdom of ancient Greece and Rome, translating texts, debating philosophy, and challenging the old orders. Nicholas Copernicus dares to suggest that Earth is not the center of the universe, a revelation that unsettles centuries of belief. Across Europe, printing presses spread knowledge faster than ever before, allowing ideas to leap from mind to mind, city to city, continent to continent. Meanwhile, explorers look beyond familiar horizons. Ships brave treacherous oceans, guided by the stars, maps, and the promise of trade. Vasco da Gama rounds Africa to reach India. Christopher Columbus sails westward, and Ferdinand Magellan's fleet circles the globe, revealing the vast, interconnected world that humans had only imagined. In science and art, boundaries blur, and creativity flourishes, fueled by patronage, curiosity, and ambition. Music, literature, and architecture transform, blending harmony, realism, and human emotion in ways the world has never seen. Yet this age of enlightenment is not without tension. Old powers resist, fearing change. Religious institutions struggle to maintain authority as new discoveries challenge ancient dogma. Political rivalries intensify, and the clash between tradition and innovation grows more pronounced. Still, the Renaissance leaves an indelible mark, a renewed faith in human potential, an understanding that observation, reason, and imagination can reshape society, and a reminder that knowledge, once lost, can be found and used to illuminate the darkness. And as the world awakens to these possibilities, a question lingers in the air, whispered between scholars and sailors, artists and kings alike. If humans can remake their understanding of the world so dramatically, what else might they yet achieve? And how far can curiosity carry the human spirit before it reaches the edge of the unknown? Sit back, relax, and imagine standing on the deck of a wooden ship, the salt air stinging your eyes, sails billowing with wind, and the endless horizon stretching before you. The Renaissance has ignited curiosity not only in art and science, but also in the vast uncharted world. Europeans, driven by trade, wealth, and the desire for discovery, embark on voyages that will change history forever. Portugal's Vasco da Gama sails around Africa's Cape of Good Hope, reaching India, opening trade routes rich with spices, silks, and gold. Spain sponsors Christopher Columbus, an Italian navigator, who, in 1492, set sail westward. Convinced he can reach Asabot instead, he lands in the Caribbean, stumbling upon a continent unknown to his world. Empires awaken. Ships laden with goods, ideas, and ambitions traverse the oceans. Ferdinand Magellan's fleet circumnavigates the globe, proving the earth is round in the most tangible way imaginable, and forever altering humanity's conception of scale and distance. Yet these journeys are not without peril. Storms rage across the Atlantic, unknown diseases strike crews, and uncharted waters hide countless dangers. On land, encounters with indigenous civilizations unfold with complexity and consequence. Some see opportunity for trade and exchange, while others bring conquest, disease, and cultural upheaval. The Americas, Africa, and Asia become nodes in a growing network of exploration, trade, and colonization, each connected by ships, ports, and the ambitions of distant rulers. Navigation advances with the compass, astrolabe, and improved cartography, while knowledge flows in both directions. Plants, animals, and ideas move between continents in what will be called the Columbian Exchange. Potatoes, maize, and chocolate transform diets in Europe. Horses, wheat, and new technologies reshape the Americas. Yet, with progress comes shadow. Slavery, exploitation, and the devastation of native populations mark the cost of expansion, a reminder that every discovery carries its own paradox. And still, the world feels limitless. The unknown calls to explorers, scientists, and merchants alike, hinting at treasures yet unseen, lands yet unclaimed, and cultures yet undiscovered. As the age of exploration reaches its height, one question resonates across oceans, whispered in ports, markets, and royal courts. If the earth can be mapped and crossed, what else might humanity dare to reach, and at what price? The stage is set for empires, trade, and the global connections that define the modern world. But the next chapters will reveal the full consequences of these daring voyages. Imagine bustling ports, the clatter of hooves, creaking wooden docks, and the salty tank of the ocean mixing with the exotic scents of spices, sugar, and tobacco. The age of exploration has unfolded into an era of empires, where kingdoms compete to claim far-off lands, resources, and peoples. Spain, Portugal, England, France, and the Netherlands establish colonies across the Americas, Africa, and Asia, each empire building its own intricate network of trade and influence. Ships laden with gold, silver, and precious goods cross treacherous seas, while merchants, sailors, and adventurers risk storms, pirates, and disease for the promise of wealth. The world is becoming connected in a way never seen before, with a web of commerce stretching from the markets of Lisbon to the jungles of the Congo, from the Silk Roads of China to the plantations of the Caribbean. This is the age of the mercantilist dream. Nations believing that wealth is finite and that control over colonies means power over the world. Yet, alongside gold and silk, darker forces move across these routes. Millions of Africans are forced into slavery, uprooted from their homes, and sent across the Atlantic to toil in sugarcane fields, cotton plantations, and mines. Entire civilizations face cultural destruction, epidemics, and upheaval as foreign powers impose their will. At the same time, knowledge flows alongside commodities. Cartographers map coastlines and rivers with increasing precision, while botanists and naturalists study plants, animals, and minerals previously unknown to Europe. Coffee, chocolate, and exotic fabrics enter European life, changing diets and fashions. Markets grow, cities expand, and economies become more complex, linking continents in cycles of demand and supply. Yet, the consequences of empire are not confined to economics alone. The clash of cultures, the spread of religion, and the introduction of European governance reshape societies, often irreversibly. Revolts, resistance, and adaptation ripple across colonized lands, reminding us that history is never one-sided. As the 17th and 18th centuries progress, the foundations of a truly globalized world emerge, built on ambition, innovation, exploitation, and connection. And beneath the surface of wealth and expansion, tensions simmer, tensions that will ignite revolutions, wars, and new visions of freedom. The story of empires and trade is a story of power, greed, curiosity, and survival. And from these beginnings, the modern world will slowly take shape, setting the stage for revolutions of thought, industry, and nationhood. But the question lingers: can the human thirst for expansion ever be balanced with justice, or will it always leave shadows in its wake? Sit back, relax, and imagine candlelit rooms filled with scholars, philosophers, and writers, the quiet scratch of quills on parchment, the faint scent of burning wax mingling with the pages of books that will change the world. The 17th and 18th centuries bring a shift in human thought, turning away from unquestioned authority, from tradition, from the weight of kings and the church, toward reason, observation, and the power of the mind. Across Europe, thinkers like Voltaire, Montesquieu, and Rousseau challenge long-held beliefs about government, society, and individual rights. They ask questions that stir curiosity and unrest. What is justice? What is freedom? Who should hold power, and why? Scientific discovery marches forward alongside philosophy, with Isaac Newton unveiling the laws of motion, explaining the mechanics of the heavens, while Galileo, once condemned, becomes a symbol of inquiry and courage. Encyclopedias compile knowledge like never before, ideas spreading across cities, salons, and coffee houses, connecting minds hungry for understanding. The notion emerges that society can be shaped, improved, and perfected through knowledge, reason, and education. People begin to question hierarchies, to imagine a world where rulers are accountable and individuals have rights. And yet, these ideas are not without danger. Monarchies fear the ripple of thought, the spark of revolution, and religious institutions worry that reason may replace faith. Meanwhile, the written word becomes a weapon, a tool of enlightenment, as pamphlets, essays, and books travel faster than ever before, carried by ships, printed presses, and eager hands. Across oceans, the colonies of the Americas absorb these new philosophies, fermenting ideas that will ignite rebellion, independence, and new forms of government. The Enlightenment is a subtle storm, invisible at first, yet shaping minds and hearts with a force that cannot be contained. It whispers that humans are not merely subjects of fate or tradition, but active architects of their destinies. The age of ideas sets the stage for revolutions, for challenges to centuries-old systems, for bold experiments in liberty and democracy. And as knowledge spreads, the question arises: can reason alone guide a society? Or does the human heart, with its passions, fears, and desires, hold the ultimate sway? The seeds planted in this era will grow into uprisings, constitutions, and conflicts that will reshape nations and lay the groundwork for the modern world. But before those chapters unfold, we must linger a moment in the quiet brilliance of thought. where the very idea of progress begins to take root. Picture the streets of Boston, Paris, and Philadelphia filled with murmurs of discontent, the clatter of cobblestones under hurried feet, the distant toll of church bells calling citizens to attention. The 18th century, once dominated by kings and unquestioned authority, erupts into the flames of revolution. Across the Atlantic, the American colonies, weary of taxes imposed by a distant monarchy and hungry for self-determination, begin to question the very idea of governance. The Stamp Act, the TIAC symbols of oppression spark protests, boycotts, and assemblies where ideas of liberty are whispered and debated in hushed tones, sometimes shouted with defiance. In 1776, a document is drafted that will echo across centuries, the Declaration of Independence. It proclaims, with words heavy and deliberate, that all men are created equal, endowed with unalienable rights. War follows, brutal and uncertain, with ragged armies, freezing winters, and a people fighting not for conquest, but for an idea, the right to govern themselves. Across the ocean, France faces a different yet equally tumultuous storm. The splendor of Versailles, the opulence of kings and nobles, stands in stark contrast to the squalor of the starving populace. Enlightenment ideas have seeded hope and anger, and soon the masses rise. The storming of the Bastille becomes a symbol, a moment when fear and oppression collide with the will of the people. The guillotine casts long shadows, cutting down kings and queens, yet sparking questions. Can society truly be remade by human hands, or does chaos follow in the wake of revolution? Amidst blood, fear, and upheaval, new governments are tested. Ideas of citizenship, equality, and rights take root, and the world watches, learning that the order of centuries can be challenged. Revolutions are messy, terrifying, and transformative, leaving scars and monuments alike. From one uprising to the next, the question lingers. When people demand change, can they control the consequences? Or do revolutions take on a life of their own, shaping history in ways no one anticipates? And as the smoke clears from these conflicts, a new era beckons, a time when nations will rise, leaders will fall, and the power of ideas will continue to propel humanity forward into uncharted political, social, and human landscapes. The world is changing, and the echoes of these revolutions will resonate far beyond their borders, setting the stage for empires to crumble, republics to emerge, and civilization to enter a modern age. As the smoke of revolution drifts across France, a new figure rises from the chaos, a man of ambition, brilliance, and undeniable presence. Napoleon Bonaparte, small in stature but towering in intellect, seizes control in 1799, declaring himself first consul and later emperor. His ascent is meteoric, fueled by military genius, political cunning, and a vision of a France that commands Europe. Imagine the clamor of drums, the rumble of cannons, and the disciplined march of soldiers through misty dawns across the European landscape. As Napoleon's armies stretch from the sun-drenched plains of Italy to the frozen rivers of Russia, each battle is not merely a clash of men, but a symphony of strategy, innovation, and relentless will. He introduces reforms that ripple through law, education, and administration. The Napoleonic Code codifies rights, property, and civil liberties in a system that will influence generations to come. Cities and towns awaken to new schools, roads, and governance structures, a testament to his vision of order and efficiency. Yet, ambition, like fire, burns both to illuminate and to destroy. The campaign into Russia in 1812 becomes a chilling saga of overreach and devastation. Frostbitten soldiers, starving horses, and endless stretches of snow turning victory into catastrophe. Europe trembles as Napoleon's influence swells, only to collapse at the distant fields of Waterloo in 1815. Exile follows, first to Elba, then to St. Helena, a remote island where the man who had reshaped the continent will spend his final days reflecting on glory and defeat. And yet, Napoleon's story is not just about conquest. It is about the power of vision, the fragility of empires, and the ways in which a single individual can accelerate history. His rise and fall reshaped borders, ignited nationalism, and left legal and administrative legacies that endure to this day. Across the continent, nations recover, redraw boundaries, and wrestle with the ideals of revolution juxtaposed with the realities of power. The age of kings is waning, but the world is not yet modern. It is on the cusp, stirred by fire, blood, and the boldness of one man who dared to imagine a new order. And as Europe rebuilds, another storm approaches, out of cannons and swords, but of machines, industry, and invention, promising a transformation even more profound than any empire or battle. From the ashes of Napoleonic ambition, the world turns its gaze to a new horizon, where the human mind, rather than the battlefield, will redefine civilization itself. The quiet rhythm of hand tools, the gentle clatter of weaving looms, and the slow pace of rural life would soon give way to a new heartbeat, louder, faster, relentless. The Industrial Revolution sweeps across Britain in the late 18th century like a storm, transforming villages into smoke-filled cities, fields into factories, and simple machines into engines of unimaginable power. Imagine the air thick with coal smoke, the hiss of steam, and the relentless pounding of metal, as massive machines replace the labor of countless hands, each piston and wheel a step into a new era. Textile mills hum day and night, rivers churn with water wheels, and factories rise like dark monoliths against the skyline. The spinning jenny, the power loom, and the steam engine are not mere inventions. They are harbingers of a society that will never again move at the pace of the seasons. Workers, men, women, and children crowd into cramped housing near the factories, their lives measured by shifts, wages, and the deafening roar of industry. Cities swell, streets jammed with carts, horses, and human bodies, markets buzzing with the strange new goods of a mechanized age. Yet, progress is both brilliant and brutal. The same machines that spin cotton also trap bodies. The same engines that light the city also darken the sky with soot. Diseases like cholera and tuberculosis thrive in the cramped quarters of industrial laborers, while the factory owners prosper in opulent homes, far from the grime and noise. From one invention to the next, humanity begins to reshape not only the earth, but itself, changing the rhythms of life, the meaning of work, and the very idea of possibility. Steam-powered locomotives tear across landscapes, shrinking distances, connecting towns, and opening trade on a scale never imagined. Coal, iron, and steel become the veins and bones of this new world, while canals, bridges, and railways pulse with human ambition. And yet, amid the smoke and clamor, whispers of unrest grow louder. Workers organize, demanding hours, wages, and safety. Voices rise in factories and streets, a prelude to social movements that will challenge the very foundations of industrial society. As the first machines roar, so too does the first human resistance. hinting at the paradox of progress, how advancement can create both wealth and inequality, innovation and suffering. And as Europe and the world begin to transform, one question lingers, soft yet insistent: in the age of machines, what becomes of humanity? The world begins to shrink, not in distance but in time, as the roar of steam engines and the iron of locomotives connect cities, nations, and continents like never before. Imagine standing on a railway platform in the mid-19th century, the scent of smoke and oil thick in the air, the vibration of steel wheels on tracks reverberating beneath your feet, trains stretching longer than any building you've seen, carrying goods, people, and ideas across landscapes once measured in weeks, now conquered in mere hours. Steamships cut through oceans with relentless efficiency, their boilers hissing and churning, propelling trade and migration across the Atlantic and beyond, reshaping societies, economies, and the very concept of distance. Global trade reaches a scale unseen: cotton from India, sugar from the Caribbean, tea from China, and machinery from Britain crisscrossing the globe in a web of interdependence. Cities expand rapidly, urban centers humming with the ceaseless energy of factories, markets, and ports. The world is alive with motion. Cranes lift cargo from docks. Children run along cobbled streets. Merchants shout prices. Horses and wagons jostle alongside steam-powered innovations, and the air vibrates with opportunity and unrest. Yet, for all its promise, this connected world carries shadows. Exploitation rides alongside progress. Colonies supply raw materials but receive little in return, while laborers in booming cities endure exhausting hours, unsafe conditions, and meager wages. The gap between the rich and poor widens, a stark reminder that every engine turning in the factories also turns the wheels of inequality. And beneath the smoke and iron, human ingenuity continues to flourish. Telegraphs send messages instantaneously across continents, bringing distant worlds into near immediate contact. Ideas and revolutions spreading faster than armies ever could. Inventors tinker, engineers design, and scientists imagine a future in which machines and humans collaborate to reach further, see clearer, and live differently. It is a time when ambition knows no borders, when the horizon itself seems to shrink before human curiosity and ingenuity. And yet, as nations race forward, one question lingers in the air, thick with coal and possibility. What will be the cost of this newfound speed, this interconnectedness, this conquest of time and space? Will humanity control the power it has unleashed, or will it be swept along, like cargo in a train that cannot stop, toward an unknown future? Step into the teeming streets of Manchester or New York in the mid-1800s, and you are swallowed by a city alive with motion, sound, and smell. Smoke curls endlessly from factory chimneys, the acrid scent of coal and iron filling the air, mingling with the tang of sweat, wet stone, and cooking fires. Horses clatter over cobblestones alongside carts piled high with goods, while street vendors shout over the din, their voices competing with the relentless rhythm of machinery from nearby mills. Buildings rise close together, their brick and soot-stained facades looming like walls closing in. Narrow alleys funneling shadowed figures and children darting between workers, while the air vibrates with the hum of ambition and despair. The city is a marvel of human organization and endurance, yet beneath its industrious energy lies suffering. Families crammed into tiny tenements, barely enough space for a bed and a stove. Children coughing in rooms filled with coal, dust, and illness. and laborers clocking 14, 16. Sometimes 18-hour days under the unyielding gaze of factory overseers. Disease spreads quickly in the crowded streets. Cholera, tuberculosis, typhoid, invisible yet deadly, claiming the weak and young with frightening regularity. Yet despite hardship, the city pulses with life, with opportunity, with dreams of wealth and upward mobility, attracting migrants from distant villages, foreign lands, and distant continents, all chasing the promise of a better future. Labor movements emerge in whispered gatherings and impassioned rallies. Strikes are called, laws debated, and slowly, painfully, reform begins to seep into society. Machines continue their endless work, indifferent to human suffering, while the contrast between riches and poverty sharpens the factory owner living in luxury, while just blocks away, families scrape together meager meals in dim, crowded rooms. And in this turbulence, creativity flourishes as well. Newspapers, theatre, music halls, and cafes offer respite, conversation, and the stirring of new ideas about society, governance, and human rights. The industrial city is a paradox, a monument to progress and a testament to human resilience, but also a mirror reflecting the cost of ambition unchecked. And as the smokestacks rise higher, as railways connect ever more distant lands, a pressing question lingers in the soot-filled air. Can humanity master this age of steel and fire? Or will the relentless march of machines shape lives and destinies beyond control, whispering that progress may come with a price no one can fully measure? Imagine standing at a railway station in the 1850s, the air vibrating with the hiss of steam and the rhythmic clatter of wheels over iron tracks. Smoke and steam mixing into a grey, tangible fog that seems to blur the line between earth and sky. The smell of coal is thick, sharp, filling your lungs, while the roar of locomotives drowns out conversation, punctuated by the shrill whistle signaling departure. Across continents, rail lines snake through valleys, cut mountains into jagged scars, and bridge rivers with steel arches, connecting cities that were once separated by days or weeks of travel into mere hours apart. Steamships ply oceans with relentless determination, their funnels belching clouds of smoke as they cut through waves that glint silver in the early morning sun, carrying goods, people, and ideas faster than any human or horse could manage before. Suddenly, the world feels smaller, more immediate, and alive with possibility. Textiles from British mills reach American markets. Sugar and cotton flow from Caribbean plantations to European ports. Raw materials from India and Africa feed the engines of industrial growth. And letters, newspapers, and packages crisscross oceans, linking lives in ways previously unimaginable. But with speed comes vulnerability. Epidemics hitch rides on these networks, ideas spread like wildfire, and economies become entwined, fragile yet astonishingly resilient. Cities expand along railways, factories clustered near ports, and urban life swells with migrants, each seeking opportunity yet confronted by the chaos of crowds, the danger of accidents, and the uncertainty of a rapidly shifting world. Steam engines symbolize human mastery over nature, but they are also relentless, indifferent, and unstoppable. Workers adapt, innovate, and resist, forming unions, staging strikes, and demanding recognition in a world dominated by iron and coal. And while the elites celebrate progress, the working class bears the weight of industrial expansion, their lives tethered to schedules dictated by whistles and the ceaseless rotation of wheels and gears. Across the oceans, Empires leverage these new technologies to tighten control, expand influence, and extract wealth, shaping a global system that is simultaneously thrilling and oppressive. Every whistle, every puff of smoke, every spark from the engine's firebox is a reminder that humanity is no longer bound to the rhythms of nature alone. The age of instantaneous movement has begun, and the question lingers like steam in the air. Will this newfound connection unite humanity, or will it amplify the inequalities and conflicts that have always followed in our wake, whispering that with great speed comes consequences we are only beginning to understand? Step into the streets of London, Paris, or New York at the close of the 19th century, and you are stepping into a world in transition, half rooted in the past, half racing toward an uncharted future. The smell of coal smoke still clings to the air, mixing with the aroma of horse manure, baking bread from corner shops, and the metallic temps of industry. The streets are alive with sound, streetcars rattling on tracks, the clip-clop of horses, hawkers calling out the price of fresh produce, and factory whistles marking the beginning and end of endless shifts. Skyscrapers begin to pierce the skyline, steel skeletons rising higher than stone cathedrals ever dared, a bold statement that human ambition has learned to climb. Gas lamps give way to electric light, bathing avenues in a pale glow that makes the night less dark, more alive, and in some ways more dangerous. The city is a theater of contrasts. Grand boulevards, lined with mansions and glittering theaters, just streets away from cramped alleys where families of 8 or 10 share a single room, their windows nailed shut against the chill, their air thick with smoke and disease. Immigration surges, millions arriving from distant continents with nothing but a suitcase and a dream, filling factories, shipyards, and sweatshops with hands and voices that will shape the century to come. The noise, the smells, the energy are intoxicating, overwhelming, yet magnetic, drawing artists, writers, and dreamers to capture it all. But with this growth come tensions. Crime rises, poverty breeds unrest, and reformers sound alarms about sanitation, housing, and the moral fabric of the city. Police forces grow, newspapers multiply, and politics becomes ever more volatile, with demonstrations and strikes swelling into the streets, demanding justice, equality, and recognition. Yet despite the chaos, the modern city becomes a crucible of invention and possibility. Public parks offer a taste of nature to those who cannot leave the city. Libraries, museums, and concert halls spread knowledge and culture. The city is no longer just a place to live, is a living organism pulsing with ambition, fear, hunger, and hope. And as electric trolleys hum through the streets and telephones bring distant voices into the parlor, a question hangs over this brave new world. Is the city humanity's greatest achievement, or a ticking machine waiting to reveal just how much pressure it can withstand before it begins to break? Picture a room suddenly illuminated not by flickering candles or smoky gas lamps, but by a single, steady electric glow, soft, white, and miraculous. The late 19th and early 20th centuries mark a turning point where science and innovation seem to accelerate beyond imagination, reshaping not just cities but the human experience itself. Electricity spreads like a nervous system across the world, lighting homes, powering streetcars, driving machinery, and bringing a strange new hum to the nights of industrial cities. Telegraph lines stretch like iron spider webs over continents, and soon the telephone brings distant voices into the same room, collapsing the space between loved ones, business partners, and world leaders. In laboratories, scientists experiment with invisible forces X-rays that reveal bones inside living flesh, radio waves that carry messages through the air, and engines powered by petroleum that roar louder than horses ever could. The Wright brothers lift off the ground at Kitty Hawk, defying gravity and opening the skies to human conquest. Automobiles begin to replace carriages, filling roads with the growl of engines and the acrid smell of gasoline, promising freedom but also heralding a new dependence on machines. Medicine takes leaps forward. Germ theory reshapes hospitals. Vaccines save millions, and surgical techniques improve, allowing once fatal injuries to be survived. And yet, with each advance comes a sense of unease. Cities glow brighter, but they also grow louder and more crowded. Factories run day and night, turning workers into parts of an ever-accelerating system. And while electricity seems to promise a better, cleaner world, it also reveals a darker truth, that humanity has entered an era where power can be generated, stored, and unleashed on scales never seen before. The modern age is thrilling, but it is also dangerous, filled with possibilities that could heal or destroy. Philosophers and writers warn of a future where machines might outpace morality, where progress could leave entire populations behind. And as the 20th century dawns, electric wires crisscross the globe. Streetlights banish the dark, and radios prepare to broadcast the human voice across oceans. The world feels as though it is holding its breath, standing at the threshold of a future both wondrous and terrifying. The question is no longer whether humanity can master nature, but whether it can master itself before the power it wields grows too great to control. The year is 1914, and the world stands on the edge of a storm it cannot yet comprehend. Picture the first trains packed with soldiers waving from open windows, believing they are headed for a short, glorious war, home by Christmas. But the optimism quickly turns to horror as the 20th century's first great conflict transforms Europe into a scarred wasteland. This is not the war of knights or cavalry charges. This is a war of machines. Machine guns chatter endlessly, mowing down waves of men who advance through mud and barbed wire. Artillery shells thunder like mechanical gods, turning fields into craters, hurling earth, wood, and human bodies skyward. Poison gas rolls low across no man's land. Yellow-green clouds that burn lungs and blind eyes, leaving soldiers clawing at their throats. The stench of rot, mud, and cordite fills the trenches, where men live knee-deep in filth, rats gnawing on corpses, sleep broken by the crash of shells and the whistle of incoming fire. Overhead, airplanes fragile, canvas-winged machines buzz like insects, scouting enemy positions and eventually dueling in the skies, the birth of a new kind of warfare. Tanks rumble onto the battlefield, steel beasts crushing barbed wire and crossing trenches, heralding the mechanized wars to come. For 4 years, the world bleeds on an industrial scale. Millions dead, millions more maimed, entire cities shattered, empires toppled. The Ottoman, Austro-Hungarian, German, and Russian empires all collapse under the strain, redrawing the map of Europe. And yet, even in this chaos, technology continues to advance. Faster planes, deadlier artillery, more efficient killing tools, as though war itself is pushing human ingenuity forward. When the guns finally fall silent in 1918, the world is forever changed. Survivors return home carrying physical scars and invisible wounds, their faith in progress shaken. The war that was meant to end all wars leaves behind a haunting question that echoes through every quiet battlefield and every cross-marked grave. If human civilization, at its most modern and enlightened, can produce destruction on this scale. What might the next great war look like, and will humanity be ready to face it? The guns have fallen silent, and for a brief moment, the world exhales, unaware that the calm is fragile, deceptive. The 1920s arrive like a burst of light, cities pulsating with jazz, automobiles gleaming under neon signs, and the air thick with optimism and ambition. Skyscrapers climb toward the clouds, symbols of human ingenuity and wealth. Radios bring voices into every home, movies flicker across screens, offering glamour, adventure, and distraction. It is a decade of invention and excess, where the stock market seems unstoppable and the promise of progress feels infinite. Yet beneath the glittering surface, cracks begin to appear. Farmers struggle with falling crop prices, workers face wage stagnation, and inequality spreads like a shadow. The world is a house of cards, its foundation weakened by the trauma of war and the imbalance of wealth. And then, on October 29th, 1929, Black Tuesday, the illusion shatters. The New York Stock Exchange collapses, sending shockwaves across the globe. Banks fail, businesses close, and millions of lives unravel as unemployment soars. Breadlines form, shantytowns rise, and despair becomes the new rhythm of life. People turn to extremes, searching for answers, leaders who promise certainty, power, and restoration. In Germany, a nation humiliated by defeat and reparations begins to fracture. Fertile ground for ideology to take root, for radicalism to spread like wildfire. Meanwhile, in Italy, Japan, and other corners of the globe, authoritarian movements gain strength, offering order in a world that feels unmoored. Science and technology continue their relentless march cars. Airplanes, radios, but these triumphs cannot shield humanity from its own volatility. The contrast between human achievement and human fragility is striking, as if the world is perched on a knife's edge, ready to tip either toward prosperity or devastation. Some suggest the seeds of the next great conflict are already sown, growing silently in discontent, nationalism, and economic despair. Others believe the era is a temporary pause, a moment to reflect before a new age of innovation and cooperation. But history whispers a warning. The forces unleashed by humanity's own progress can be as destructive as they are magnificent. And as nations struggle to rebuild, to stabilize, and to dream again, an unsettling question hangs in the air: will the next decade bring renewal? Or will the world plunge once more into the darkness of war? Amplified by technology, ideology, and ambition, the 1930s arrive like a storm. Dark clouds gathering over a fragile world still reeling from economic collapse and the scars of the Great War. In Germany, a nation humiliated by defeat and burdened with reparations begins to grasp for hope, a scapegoat, a new order. Adolf Hitler, a former soldier turned orator, rises to prominence, his words dripping with promises of restored pride, power, and unity. The Nazi Party exploits fear, nationalism, and resentment, presenting a vision of a world remade in their image. Italy under Mussolini mirrors this rise, embracing fascism, glorifying the state above all, and celebrating militarism as a path to greatness. Meanwhile, Japan pursues imperial ambitions, seeking resources and territory in Asia, and setting the stage for future conflict. Across Europe, democracies tremble, hesitant to confront aggression, hoping that appeasement will hold back the tide of tyranny. Yet the ambitions of these leaders cannot be contained by diplomacy alone. In 1939, Germany invades Poland, a calculated strike that triggers a chain reaction across the continent. The world descends once more into the chaos of global war. Blitzkrieg tactics, tanks, and aircraft unleash devastation on unprecedented scales. Cities burn, and civilians, caught between armies and ideologies, face terror and displacement. As Europe fights for survival, fascist regimes tighten their grip, enforcing control through propaganda, secret police, and persecution. The Holocaust begins its horrifying march. Millions of innocent lives systematically targeted for destruction, their humanity denied. Across the Atlantic, nations debate intervention, torn between isolation and moral responsibility. Technology evolves rapidly, war driving innovation, radar jets, and early computers alter the landscape of conflict, yet they cannot lessen the human toll. From one occupied city to the next, from concentration camps to bombed-out streets, the scale of suffering is unimaginable. And yet, amidst this darkness, resistance flickers. Ordinary people risk everything to save lives, to fight back, to preserve hope. Allies slowly mobilize, planning strategies that will eventually turn the tide. Some researchers suggest that the brutality of this era was a consequence of unchecked ambition and technological power. Others argue it was the inevitable collision of ideologies fueled by desperation and fear. One thing is certain: the decisions of this decade will shape the map of the world, the lives of millions, and the moral reckoning of humanity for generations to come. And as the conflict spreads, one question haunts the horizon. Can the human spirit endure when the world itself seems poised on the brink of annihilation? The war escalates, engulfing continents in fire, smoke, and unrelenting chaos. By 1941, Nazi Germany has conquered much of Europe, its armies sweeping through cities, villages, and countrysides with terrifying efficiency. The Blitzkrieg strategy leaves devastation in its wake, while civilians hide in cellars, their faces lit by flickering flames and the occasional glare of searchlights slicing through the night. The Holocaust, now in full grim motion, casts a shadow across Europe, its horrors meticulously orchestrated by a regime determined to erase millions from existence. Jews, Romani people, disabled individuals, political dissidents, and countless others are rounded up, transported in cattle cars, and sent to camps where death and despair are industrialized. Some researchers believe the scale of this cruelty was unprecedented in human history, a dark testament to the power of ideology fused with technology. Across the seas, Japan expands its empire, attacking Pearl Harbor in 1941 and bringing the United States fully into the conflict. A reluctant giant awakening to global war. The turning points begin to appear. In 1942, the Battle of Stalingrad sees Soviet forces encircle the German army, cutting off supply lines, freezing soldiers in the snow, and pushing back the seemingly invincible van. In the Pacific, the Battle of Midway cripples the Japanese fleet, shifting momentum toward the Allies. Meanwhile, the Allies plan the ultimate strike, Operation Overlord. On June 6, 1944, D-Day, thousands of soldiers stormed the beaches of Normandy under relentless gunfire, artillery, and the roar of aircraft above, a symphony of courage, chaos, and desperation. From the ashes of war emerges glimpses of heroism, communities rescuing the persecuted, underground networks sabotaging tyrants, and ordinary civilians risking everything to resist oppression. Yet the scale of destruction is staggering. Entire cities flattened, millions of lives lost, economies shattered, and a moral reckoning that will haunt generations. The liberation of concentration camps reveals the unimaginable piles of belongings, emaciated survivors, and the chilling evidence of systematic murder. The world watches in disbelief, confronting a darkness that seems almost unimaginable, yet undeniably real. Some historians suggest these events forced humanity to reconsider morality, governance, and the fragility of civilization itself. Others warn that war is cyclical, a reminder of how power, fear, and prejudice can erupt into catastrophe. As the Allies push forward, the question lingers over the horizon. Can the world rebuild from such devastation? And can humanity prevent history from repeating its darkest chapters? As the guns fell silent in 1945, the world was forever altered. Yet a new threat emerged from the same laboratories that had promised progress: the atomic bomb. In Hiroshima and Nagasaki, mushroom clouds rose like ominous flowers of fire, vaporizing cities in moments, leaving shadows etched into stone, and killing tens of thousands instantly, with countless more succumbing to radiation in the years that followed. Some scientists who had built the bomb celebrated their scientific triumph, while others recoiled in horror, warning that humanity had unlocked a force that could end civilization itself. Across Europe and Asia, nations struggled to rise from ruins, cities smoldering, economies shattered, and populations traumatized by the horrors of war. The Marshall Plan injected billions into rebuilding Western Europe. Roads were repaved, factories reconstructed, and hope painstakingly sown into the rubble of despair. Yet, behind the relief, tensions simmered. The United States and the Soviet Union, once uneasy allies against a common enemy, now eyed each other with suspicion. Their ideological differences crystallizing into the Cold War. Some scholars argue that the atomic bomb itself became a symbol of power, a silent threat that shaped diplomacy, strategy, and fear for decades to come. The world divided into spheres of influence: NATO in the West and the Warsaw Pact in the East, each side amassing nuclear arsenals, spy networks, and propaganda machines designed to maintain control and intimidate the other. Korea became the first proxy battlefield, a frozen peninsula witnessing devastating conflict as nations fought indirectly, while the world held its breath, aware that a single misstep could ignite a nuclear apocalypse. In cities across the globe, citizens lived with the anxiety of potential annihilation, constructing bomb shelters and rehearsing air raid drills, a surreal normalcy in the shadow of Armageddon. Meanwhile, science raced forward, spurred by both competition and curiosity. Rockets pierced the sky, satellites orbited the Earth, and soon humans would walk in space, a remarkable testament to human ingenuity, even amid geopolitical tension. The post-war era was a paradox, a time of reconstruction and hope intertwined with fear and uncertainty. Some believed the atomic age could usher in a utopia of energy and progress, while others warned of the ever-present risk that humanity could destroy itself. As nations rebuilt, the question persisted: could a species capable of such brilliance also avoid its own annihilation? Or would the very technologies meant to protect and progress civilization become the instruments of its downfall? The world was entering a delicate dance of power, science, and survival, and every move mattered. By the mid-20th century, humanity had begun reaching for the stars, propelled by a mixture of curiosity, rivalry, and ambition. The launch of Sputnik, won by the Soviet Union in 1957, was more than a scientific achievement. It was a clarion call that the heavens were within reach, and that space itself had become a new frontier of human competition. Satellites orbited silently, transmitting data and beeping their presence into the void. A humbling reminder that Earth was only one small stage in the vast cosmic theater. Just 4 years later, Yuri Gagarin became the first human to journey into space, orbiting our planet and glimpsing the curve of the Earth, a fragile blue orb floating in the infinite black. This moment sparked the American response, culminating in the Apollo 11 mission of 1969, when Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin left footprints on the moon, their every movement broadcast to millions, as if the world collectively held its breath. While nations looked skyward, tectonic shifts were occurring on Earth itself. Colonies across Africa, Asia, and the Caribbean, long subjugated under European empires, were rising, asserting independence with voices both diplomatic and militant. Some countries embraced peaceful negotiations. Others waged bitter wars of liberation, leaving scars on the land and in memory. The Cold War loomed over every development, casting long shadows, but it also accelerated technological innovation. Computers, once room-sized curiosities, began shrinking, leading to the first digital revolutions. Microchips, satellites, and telecommunications networks reshaped daily life, connecting people across continents in ways previously unimaginable. The same era that saw rockets piercing the atmosphere also saw social revolutions, civil rights movements, gender equality campaigns, and environmental awareness grew into global consciousness. Television brought images of protests, conflicts, and celebrations directly into homes, turning distant events into immediate experiences. Some observers saw hope in these transformations, believing humanity was finally learning to cooperate and innovate. Others warned that rapid progress without wisdom could magnify inequality, environmental collapse, and geopolitical tension. Amid all this, the question lingered: could a species so adept at building, exploring, and liberating also navigate the responsibilities of its own power? The planets offered inspiration, the Earth demanded care, and the clock of history ticked relentlessly forward, as humanity balanced exploration with survival, technology with ethics, and freedom with order. One truth became evident: the story of civilization was no longer only about survival, it was about choice, vision, and the paths we would dare to take into the unknown. And so, as the 20th century drew to a close, humanity stood at a precipice, looking both inward and outward, poised to step into an era of global connection, digital intelligence, and interstellar dreams. As the calendar turned to the 21st century, humanity entered a world unrecognizable even from a century before, a place where technology, connectivity, and ambition collided with ancient challenges and timeless questions. The Internet, once a niche experiment, had become the bloodstream of global civilization, carrying information, ideas, and culture across continents at the speed of thought. Mobile devices placed the power of knowledge and communication in nearly every hand, while satellites circled silently above, monitoring, connecting, and guiding life on Earth. In parallel, artificial intelligence began emerging from the shadows of theory into the forefront of reality. Machines capable not just of calculation but of learning, adapting, and even creating. Some researchers marveled at AI's potential to cure disease, explore the cosmos, and expand human creativity. Others feared its capacity to disrupt economies, reshape societies, and challenge our very understanding of intelligence and life itself. Meanwhile, the push to explore beyond Earth intensified. Robotic rovers on Mars scoured dusty plains, peering into riverbeds that whispered of ancient water and possible life, while probes reached icy moons around Jupiter and Saturn, hinting at oceans concealed beneath frozen crusts. Visionaries spoke not just of visiting other worlds, but of colonizing them, imagining cities under domes on Mars, orbiting habitats, and interstellar vessels that might one day carry humanity to distant stars. Yet, amid these technological and cosmic strides, the human condition remained layered with contradictions. Climate change, political unrest, and the fragility of ecosystems reminded us that our home planet is finite, and that survival and progress are inseparable from responsibility. Cultural revolutions continued, as voices previously marginalized demanded inclusion, equality, and recognition. The boundaries of medicine, biology, and genetics expanded, raising ethical dilemmas alongside scientific breakthroughs. As we confront these challenges, one question emerges with unprecedented clarity. What kind of civilization will we become? Will we use our tools, intelligence, and reach to create a sustainable, enlightened global society, or will our own ambition and oversight lead to unforeseen consequences? For the first time, humans are not only shaping history, they are shaping the future of life itself, on Earth and potentially beyond. The 21st century is a crossroads where curiosity meets caution, where dreams meet reality, and where the next chapters of human civilization are waiting to be written. Sit back, relax, and imagine the possibilities. For this is a story without a final page, a story still unfolding under the same stars that have guided humanity for millennia, and now, perhaps, into the infinite reaches of space itself.